In this video, I'm going to take you through the 2.1G lesson, which is called Comparing Proportional Relationships. I'm going to go through this lesson. I might go a bit fast, so feel free to pause it and or check out the key that's posted in Google Classroom. It says directions for each activity. Below, compare the dependent variable cost to the independent variable hours and complete the table of values. Number one, the story says it costs $10 per hour to talk on the phone long distance. I want to fill out the table, state the COP, write an equation, and figure out in part C on a lot of these some other bit of missing information. So I noticed that it actually tells me that it's $10 per 1 hour, so that I know my COP is 10. It's also going to be my unit rate, so when I fill out my table, this is going to help me fill out that I know that for $10 I can afford 1 hour. And as I move down in my table, if X is going up by 1, then Y should go up by 10. So this was my Y value, and this was my X value. So that would make this 30, and this would be 0. And in the last few lessons, I've also noticed that my COP, or my unit rate, shows up as the number in front of X in my equation. So my equation is Y equals 10X. And then C says, what is the cost for half an hour? So I could either look at my table and try to figure out what would be the cost between 0 and 1 hour. Or another way is I could plug into my equation a half an hour, which is 0.5. A better choice might be to use 1/2. And that would equal 5. Half of 10 is 5. And so I figure out that it is $5 for half an hour, which kind of makes sense because in my table it will be between 0 and 1 and between 0 and 10. Then number 2 deals with Lasertag. It tells me that it's going to cost, or that for 2 hours, it's going to cost $5. So $5 over 2 hours means that this is going to come out to be a COP of 2.5. That means that it's going to be $2.50 per 1 hour as I fill out my table. So that would mean then for $2.50, I can get 1 hour. For $5, so I've increased that by 2.5, so this would be increased by 2. This is probably 0, 0, since all of these are proportional. And then for 4, well, I've jumped from 2 to 4. I've doubled it, so I'm probably going to do the same thing with my cost here. If I'm not sure, though, here's my equation. And I could double check it. So for 4, don't forget my X there, Y equals 2.5 times 4, which is 10. Like I did last class, I would suggest going to Desmos.com and pulling up the scientific calculator so that you can expedite some of this number crunching. You may use a calculator. It should not be your phone. For C, it says $20 relates to how many hours? So $20 here, I want to figure out what goes with that in the X or hours column. So I could try some things. I could also plug in 20. So money is Y into my equation. Solve for X by dividing both sides by the number in front of X, the coefficient. So 20 divided by 2.5 is 8. 8 hours. That makes sense because I also double X as I double Y. The next activity we have is Paintball. This one is going to cost $75 for 3 hours. Both of these are divisible by 3. So we end up getting that this is $25 per hour. So my COP is 25. My equation is Y equals 25X. And now I can fill out my table. And I start to notice that some of these tables are going to start to be a little bit different. This is going to be 0, 0. And I might want to use my equation to try to fill some of these out. So when would the cost be $75? Probably when it's 3 hours. 3 times 25 is 75. So this would be 3. When would it be 150? Kind of doing a guess and test here to see. Well, 75 doubled is 150, so maybe it's 6. It is, which comes out to be 150. And then for 9, it's 225. Part C then says, box these answers. What's the cost for 4.5 hours? So I'm going to take my equation and I'm going to plug in 4.5 or 4.5 in for my x, which is my hours. And so 25 times 4.5 is 112.5 or $112.50. Again, feel free to pause this if I'm going too fast. Let's go to now renting a camping spot for 24 hours, and it costs $6. So $6 for 24 hours simplifies down to divide by 6, 1/4. So my COP is 1/4 or 0.25. My equation would be y equals 0.25x, or y equals 1/4 x. Let's go to our table now. So this is going to be 0, 0. And I'm going to plug in some of these values. So y equals 0.25 times 6. Whoops. That's 150. So it's not going to cost much to camp there. For 12, if I'm doubling this, this is probably 3. Let's double check it. So now I'm doing 12. I could even just adjust what I have entered here. That's $3, okay. And then $4.50. What's going to cost $4.50? $4.50 equals 0.25x. Divide both sides by 0.25. So 4.5 divided by 0.25 is 18. Okay, I have my table filled out. The last thing is it says $12.50 relates to how many hours? So I'm going to set that equal to my y. My y is my cost. And I'm going to solve for however many hours that is going to be. 12.5 divided by 0.25 is 50. Again, I'm talking quite fast. Feel free to pause this or go back. Notice how I'm using my equations a lot to figure out my table, especially as my table is not just going up from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's skipping from 0 to 6 to 12 to 18. Although I can see a pattern that's occurring that maybe doesn't require a calculator, but please feel free to use one to check your table or to help fill in some difficult parts of the table. Number 5, it says we're going to create our own story, table, and equation that compares cost per hour and has a greater unit rate than problem number 1. So problem number 1 had a unit rate of 10, or a COP of 10, and problem number 3 had a unit rate of 25. So you're going to fill this out on your own. You're welcome to look at my key to see what I did, but I hope you're picking something different. So I would need to pick a COP that's somewhere between 10 and 25. So 15 might work well, or 20, but you're only going to pick one of those, and then you're going to build a table, an equation, and write your own story that somehow relates to something having a cost in an hour. So in my example, I did babysitting, and we saw in these other examples it had to do with camping, or playing Paintball, or doing laser tag, or placing a phone call. And then number 6, I'm going to make a second video where I show you graphing these as well as answering these questions.